Hey, do you want to put your logo or text on a print, but you want it to be absolutely flat? Let me show you how I made this one. So normally when we make these, we print them as this, and we change layers this way, but this leaves an edge, and you don't always want that. For something like this, it's completely fine. But for something like this, where this is the bottom of my printer, I want this to be smooth, and I cannot print that like this. So I've made a short tutorial, a simple tutorial on how I design these and also how I print them. So this is a step-by-step on how I made these. If anyone's curious, these are laundry hamper tags because I can't remember where stuff goes. So without further ado, let's go to my desktop and I'll show you how I design these.
Okay, so for these laundry basket tags, I can call them, I've made this dark one, and next I'll show you how to make um, the next one. And this can be applied to anything that you want to design. So this is the existing thing that we are going to make, but it's not going to be called dark. So I could go into my sketch and just rename and then work from there, but I want to show you from start to finish how I do this. So in Onshape, and as I've said, this works with any software. Um, I'm going to do this how I like to do it. There may be other ways to do this. First thing I'm going to do is rename this. So I'll call this white because that's the writing, because I want one of these tags for my all my white clothing. And we're going to start by um, pressing sketch and selecting the face that we want to do this on. I usually just select the top face, and I'll hide these other ones to make it easier to see. And also at the top here, I'm going to orient it so that I can see straight on to what I'm doing. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to set the outside boundary of this. So I have that measurement. So I'll go to center point rectangle, and I'll just make a box. I don't have to worry about this um, when making this box. So now you can see that if I hold my mouse over these two values, I can edit them. So I'll type 110 because that's the measurement that I want for this, and then it automatically selects another one. So I'll do 25. That's the other one for this. And now let's just make a box so that we can resize our text box. This is just how Onshape works. So I'll make a construction box this time, and I'll set it just roughly that size. And then we'll go to text and make sure we hit both of these two corners right here. So that'll lock the text box to that construction box that we've set earlier. And in this text box, I'll just type in white because that is the name. I prefer to do these bold. Makes the letters a little bit easier to print. And you can choose whatever font you want. For this one, I selected Poppins. It's nice and simple to read. And just hit OK. Now that looks pretty good. For this one, I know the size vertically for the letters, and I want to get it as close as I can. But because this is more letters than the dark one, I won't be able to stretch it out as much. So let's go to dimension and let's select that box right there, no, that line right there. And right now it's 20.2. Let's do 24. How does that look? So that is probably a little bit too much. So let's just double click that again and do 23. And that looks pretty good to me. Just comparing it to this and the fact that I know the height of the other one. Um, and that's it for this part of the build. Now let's do how we are going to center this as easy as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the fact that the slicers can center or align parts by itself. So for my build specifically, I'm going to print this on a Rook, which has a print bed of 120 by 120. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select another rectangle, a central rectangle, and make a box, and I'm just going to type in 115 or 112, just slightly bigger than the item that we're making. So let's do 112 by 112. Let's see, 112. And now let's do a offset on these 4 lines right here, and I'll do it outwards and hit enter, and then I'll just do 1 millimeter. So now I have a print that's 114 by 114. That's more than enough for what I need. That'll fit inside the print bed of my Rook. So I'm going to finish that sketch, and next we're going to start extruding. So there's 2 ways of doing this. I could have made the text reversed when I made it, but for some reason my head doesn't like how that looks when I'm working on something. So I prefer to just do it this way and then extrude it the wrong way. So I'll extrude from the face that we're looking on and back and not towards us. So let's just start extruding. So the first thing I'm going to extrude is this box right here. So I'm going to do, first I'm going to make sure that it goes back from where we are. And then I'm going to do 0.4 millimeters. Now that'll give me a just a small little box that will serve as a really big skirt on my print. Let's go back to our sketch and turn on the visibility. And next I'm going to do the actual box that all of this is going into. And again, this is how I do it. You might do this in a different way. So the thickness of this is what I'm going to do next. It's 4 millimeters for this. And I'm going to do opposite direction because I want to extrude from me and not towards me. And when I now click on this box, it'll extrude everything around this text. And for this, I want to actually I want to extrude everything, and then I want to cut a hole into it. So I'm just going to include all the letters like so, and then hit OK. And then I want to make a recess into this. So that's the space for the white letters in this case. So I'm going to do extrude again, but this time do remove. And I'm going to select all the letters. And we want that 0.4 height because that's two layers with white filament, you want at least 2 layers. If you have translucent filament, the background is going to affect your print. So we're doing 0.4 millimeters, and that'll give us the black part of this. And then finally, we are going to extrude just the letters. So let's do extrude, and make sure it's on new, and let's do 0.4 again. And what's going to happen now, as soon as I click this, and we do opposite direction, as we should, in some cases, like it just did there, it'll switch to add. So make sure that it's always on new. And then the I and the T and the E. Now that gives us a bunch of different parts. And now we have that finished print. So to send this to our printer, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to, for my own sake, I like to rename my parts. So I'll rename that to, let's rename that to just box, because it's the box around. And let's rename the second one to block. And then I'm just going to rename each of these to the letter. And now we have all of our different parts labeled, so that this next part is going to be easy. So I'm going to select all of my letters, and I'm also going to select my box, and then I'm going to right click and export. Now, depending on your slicer, you want to export into a OBJ, an STL, or a step file. I do step for most of the things that I'm going to do myself because I use Orca Slicer, and it just works with step. On bigger prints, steps and OBJs have better resolution, but I always export in step, so I'm just going to keep doing that. And now that is going to export. Next, I'm going to select the block and also the box and hit export again. So I'll call this white and then underscore 2 to make it easier to differentiate, and export. And that's it. So let's jump into the slicer, and I'll show you how to orient and make it ready for printing. And now we're in Orca Slicer. So let's just import both of our objects. And if it prompts you to load them as single objects with multiple parts, press no. That'll make this way harder, or practically impossible. So add plates, because we have 2 different plates in Orca Slicer. In other slicers, you have to do this on the same plate and save it twice. And then I'm just going to drag my second box over to this one, and you might see that this outside box, the perimeter box, is floating and it's the wrong way. So let's quickly fix that by selecting our part and do lay on face and select that face. Now remember to do it on the other one as well to flip the text. And even though it's upside down, they are both the same orientation, and that's the important part. Now, to align both of these so that it prints exactly on top of each other, luckily we have that tool. It's just called Arrange Objects, and that'll auto align it to the center of the bed. And because of that box, then all of the text is aligned. So I'll do that for both. And for for Clipper, that's all you need to do for your slicer. I do recommend keeping in mind that you're printing, so we set our layer to 0.4, so I'll print this in 0.2. If you're going to do higher or rougher layers, you need to account for that in your design. Make sure that elephant foot compensation is not on. Just makes the transition between the text and the background cleaner. You can do elephant foot compensation. It'll give you a slight edge. For some people, that'll look clean as well. Other than that, there's no real change to the slicer. So I'm going to slice these and send them to my printer, and then we'll look at the changes that you need to make if you're doing this in Marlin and in Clipper. Let's first look at Marlin. For most Marlin setups, you can change just your start and end G code in your slicer. There shouldn't be any need for you to change your actual G code file. So let's go to printer setting in Prusa Slicer and machine limits, or sorry, custom G code. And so this is an Ender 3, doesn't have bed mesh leveling, but we should have to change some of these values. So we don't want it to home. We want to do that manually before the first print. So I'm going to just put in that. So that'll make sure that your printer will ignore that line. So when we are finished with this, we can just go back and change it. And also we are going to change our M84 in the NG code. That'll make sure that the motors stay on so we don't have to home between the two prints. Remember that if you have your printer doing a mesh leveling, you need to disable that as well in here. Now for Clipper, we practically do the same. Let's go into machine. Let's find our macros. These are either in your printer config, or I like to have mine separate. So I'll go into my macros.config. I'll look for my start print. Some setups have this as print start, so make sure that if you're looking for it, you can. I would just look for the word start. And in here, this is a bunch of things, does different things on your printer. The main one that we want to see are these two. The G28 is the same as on Marlin, that's the home. So let's comment that out by adding a hash to it. And then bed mesh calibrate, because we don't want this to bed mesh on top of that first print. So we'll turn that off as well. I can leave prime line, I don't care about that as much. Now for my end G code, I want to turn off disable motors, and I also want to turn off bed mesh clear. So this is the command that will wipe the mesh info from your saved setup, and we don't want that. We want it to stay on the first one. So let's save and close. And if you do bed mesh leveling, I do highly suggest that for this, that you go into your config, go to your bed mesh setting, and change the probe count to something relatively high, because the quality of this first layer is absolutely crucial to get a big print. A good print. So for something big like the bottom plate for my rook, I set this to 9x9. So for this, I'm going to set it to 5x5. On a tiny bed like this, that's a lot. And then let's do a save and restart. Now, before we start printing these files that we've sent to our printer, it's important to remember that we just removed homing and mesh leveling from our start G code and our macros. So first thing we're going to do is set our bed to the correct temperature, and we're going to let that heat up. Now that our bed is heated, let's go ahead and home the printer. Next, let's do a bed mesh calibrate. I have a macro set up for my meshing. Now that our mesh is done, we'll just go to our slicer, and we have all these files prepared. So let's upload and print the first one, and only upload the second one. So because we've already homed and done our brush leveling, the printer should just heat up the hot end and then start printing. So I'm going to head over to the printer, and let's see how this looks. Now that we have the text printed, let's go ahead and remove that little piece, and also let's get this little piece off. And let's swap filaments, and let's print the black parts. And moment of truth. This was difficult one-handed, sorry.
And there we are. One finished print. It looks good and it's functional. And I do know that I could have just used this method. But this is something you can do that most other people with a 3D printer won't do. So separate yourself, or just include your logos when you're printing stuff. You can do this on the bottom of a print. You can do this as a top piece of your print if you print it upside down. There's an endless sea of possibilities here. So I hope you followed along and it was easy to do, and I'll see